But if you're ever having a really bad day as a business probate or real estate lawyer, Chris, just it could be worse. I could be a criminal lawyer, and every one of my clients that went to jail, they have nothing better to do except sit in jail and then file ineffective assistance of counsel claims against you years later. That's just what it's like being a criminal lawyer. Welcome to episode 90 of the Weekly Docket, a Silberman Law Firm podcast. Today is October 3rd, 2025. I'm Phil Silberman, owner of the firm and your host, and I'm joined by Chris Heald, who's the firm's supervising attorney. Chris, we're going to do something different. You don't strike me as a guy that loves change. We're going to call this show Inbox Friday, okay? And I own a firm, about 20 lawyers, and we're also a real estate company. We're just doing like a what's in my inbox kind of thing. So I didn't change anything. I didn't select anything. These were just the first in the order of 3 or 4 things when I was putting together the show that were in my inbox. Okay. And we're just going to talk about it. So let's go ahead
You know
and
what
get
this
it.
reminds me of? This reminds
What?
me, I don't think they do this anymore, but remember in the 90s, you would watch a TV show and you would get to a show and you would realize that it didn't advance the plot at all. So it was one that they must have recorded like at the beginning of the season as a standalone contained episode. So like when the actors got sick, they could run this one and then go back to advancing the plot. This feels, with no negative connotation there, this feels like that. You're like, let's just run this episode and go through the inbox.
You're a very astute person, and sometimes that happens, but we do this a little. Sometimes we get busy, or during the holidays, it's just hard to muster the energy to do a show. So what other podcasts do is they'll just play a rerun. We don't do that at the Silberman Law Firm because we're better than that. So this is our bar, right? So if we're feeling a little bit tired and we need to do a show, sometimes you just do one of these new variety things. But yeah. All right, so let's get it.
You also said this is show 90, so we must be getting to 100. So like we're going to end 2025 at show 100. God willing, we make it there.
10 more shows for 9 more after this one, 10 more shows for 100. Okay. We're talking about, first thing was in my inbox. It was a solicitation or advertisement for fractional boat ownership. Okay. So here's the concept that they want you to buy. Tell me if you like it. Don't buy a boat because boats are expensive. You have to fix them. You have to maintain them. They're a huge hassle. What you do is you pay this initiation fee. It's typically about $5,000. And then you pay about $400 or $500 a month to use a fleet of boats. So you want to go on a boat, you put the family in the car. In Texas, you drive down to Clear Lake, or they've got one at Conroe, Chris. And then you have a reservation. You get on the boat and you just use the boat. And then you take the kids skiing or tubing or whatever. And then you done with the boat, drive it back to the dock, get the kids in the car and go. You don't wash the boat. You don't fill the boat up with gas. You don't do any of that stuff. And that's the deal. You like it, or would you rather own a boat? You have to choose. Don't say I don't want to do either, but you have to
pick one. Well, I feel like I know someone who did that. Yeah, I definitely like that idea a lot more. Having never owned a boat, not knowing how to drive a boat or do anything with a boat, I have heard the tales of the 2 happiest days in a boat owner's life are the day he buys his boat and the day he sells his boat. Not owning a boat, but getting all the benefits of a boat and being able to just walk away. You pay your year-long dues and you're like, okay, I use it this year. I'm not sure I'm going to use it again next year, so I'm out. Sounds like a great deal. It's not like a condo that you get trapped in. It actually sounds like a good working arrangement.
It's pretty good. I used to be a member of one several years ago, but I ended up canceling it because the kids were doing other stuff. And I was a big fan. I thought it was great. I will tell you, they can't give these things away right now. They were like all things boats were really big during the pandemic because everyone wanted to get out, be on a boat. You couldn't do anything else. Now you have this complete tanking of things like that, of Airbnbs and these boat ownerships. So right now, if you want to buy a boat or you want to get a boat membership, it is a great time. I'm not a buyer right now. So I just got the email and I delete it.
I'm not going to let my wife watch this episode because she is a boat fanatic. She has always believed in having a boat. It's one of the things she wants in life. So we're going to pretend this never happened.
Right. Okay. Hopefully she doesn't listen to the show. There's some negatives to this though. Generally people want to take a boat out for a sunset cruise. That's always a big thing. And then you end up putting the boat up like right about dusk. With these boat programs, because of lawyers and because of the insurance restrictions, they don't want that boat out anywhere close to the night hour. So those boats have to generally be back in the late afternoon hours. So that's a negative to it. They just let you take the boat out, Chris. You have to take one of their certification classes. In Texas, I think it's the Department of Parks and Wildlife class, and I took the class. The whole thing is about how dangerous it is to be on a jet ski, or what do you call it, a wave runner, or a sea dude. That's the whole class. Like
they're nothing to do with boats.
It is. I guess technically it's a boat, but and you can't even rent them. You can't even lease them in the program. They're so dangerous. They only have real boats. But the whole thing is because the wave runners, they're constantly trying to jump over your wake and doing crazy stuff. I think there was a video of Kanye West when he was still married to Kim Kardashian, where he was like in an accident on a jet ski or something like that. So it was terrible. Very dangerous stuff, but that's the whole class. All right, we digress. All right, next thing in my inbox. This one is more related to what we practice. This was a potential client wanting to talk about TREC licensing compliance for multifamily property management companies. So TREC, Texas Real Estate Commission, they regulate property managers, but are you familiar with sort of the history behind that at all, Chris, and what exceptions are out there? Not really.
If you would have asked me 10 years ago, maybe, because I remember we had a couple cases. Things come in waves, right? We get specific, it's just the way it happens somehow. We get specific cases and then we get multitudes of them. I do remember when we first started and you being the leasing guy, being able to talk about the structure and the way it worked. And we had some people that were in some hot water that we helped out, but that was 10 years ago. And so long answer, no, I don't.
Okay. There was a reason that was 10 years ago, because around about 2011, the state changed the law to where if you were controlling the rents and deposits for single family housing, then you did all of a sudden come under TREC regulation. I think that was about 2011. Prior to that, it was the Wild West. You could just basically be a convicted felon and say, hey, I want to manage your house and start collecting rent and controlling security deposits. And the state said this needs to be regulated. But the state had a problem, Chris. Anytime they regulate things, you worry about being too restrictive and casting too wide of net. And what was happening is, how do we write this law? Because you have all these multifamily, these apartments out there, they're 300, 400 units or whatever. And the state never regulated those guys, and they had no interest in ever regulating apartments, right?
Okay.
So they had to have a carve out. And here was the carve out. They said, if you manage an apartment complex, and I'm paraphrasing, this was all in legalese, but if you manage an apartment complex and there's an on-site leasing office, then you don't have to be regulated by the Texas Real Estate Commission. So what does that mean, Chris? If you have a fourplex or like a duplex or a small 12-unit place with no on-site leasing, that means you're managing that kind of product, you need a real estate license.
Okay.
So that was the deal. The other carve out was if you just do repairs on the property, but you don't control rent and security deposits, then you don't need a license for that. Anyway, one of the most interesting things, this request was from, I think, a fairly large multifamily manager. So I haven't talked to him yet, but I'm curious to see if they're thinking about getting in this 4-plex or 12-plex business and why it is they want to get a broker's license, or maybe they just want to know what the law is. Who knows? All right, let's move on to our next request, trademarks. This is a trademark request. I had an email from actually a friend of mine. She wanted us to do a trademark for a clothing startup, which is pretty cool. And our firm, we do a lot of federal registrations of marks. General thing we do is we conduct a search of USPTO for any kind of, so if you want to register some mark out there, I don't know what you might want to register, Chris, but something, whatever, but
need to register anything.
Chriso's fantasy draft league or whatever, you want to have that, you would call us up, you wouldn't call us up because you work for the firm, but you would do a trademark search, make sure there's no other Chriso's fantasy football trademarks. And then you do a USPTO application. You file your trademark with the USPTO. Here's a big takeaway. A lot of people don't know this. They think that, okay, I've got this logo and then I've got the name and I want you to register the trademark. Turns out that's actually two marks, really, two separate filings anyway. So that kind of doubles the fees. But yeah, that's trademark stuff. We do a lot of that, and hopefully we get that client handled quickly and efficiently. The USPTO, this was from one of our attorneys, is really backed up right now. If you had to guess, how long are they currently running to get a mark registered, Chris? Just wild guess.
7 months.
6 months to a year. So you're pretty close. So yeah. All right. Next thing in my inbox, one of our offshore people in the Philippines was requesting sick leave today. That happens.
Is that a legal issue?
No, these aren't necessarily legal issues.
Oh, you're just going through your email. This is literally reading time with Phil. Okay.
That's exactly what the whole boat thing wasn't a legal issue either.
Oh,
the solicitation for a boat wasn't a legal issue. Yeah.
Got it.
Sick leave. We can make it a legal issue. People get sick in the Philippines. They've had some terrible weather there. They always have bad weather. That's one of the downsides of employing people in the Philippines. They had earthquakes. They had a typhoon that came through there, but they also get sick, which is normal, right? So they request sick leave, and then we have one of our US-based people, one of our legal assistants, they go ahead and approve the sick leave. We can make this a legal thing, just an interesting thing. Our law firm, we employ people in the Philippines for administrative help to keep costs down. I think they do a good job. Yeah, here's a quick rundown of how to do it. If you own a business out there, and you're thinking about employing people offshore maybe to save money and get good quality work, there's this thing, it's really hard to do. You can't just move into the Philippines or another country and form your own entity. You can, but it's more complex. So they have these things out there, Chris, called an EOR, stands for Employer of Record. And they're the company that actually employs them, and the contract is with the Filipino employees or whichever country. You can do them in any country. Let's say you needed a software programmer and you wanted someone from India, or you needed like a you needed a CFO and you wanted that person from an Eastern European country. I mean, you can employ them all over the world through an employer of record in each country. And it's a great way to expand your talent search if they're just virtual positions. So I'm a big fan of it. But it's not all sunshine and roses. You really have to manage offshore people. One of the biggest things they do, Chris, I don't know if you could predict this. Sometimes you get some bad ones and they're trying to work multiple jobs, right? So they take.
That happens with any remote people, but I'm sure it happens. I feel like just the further you are away from your employer, the more likely you're going to try to be like, oh, they're in Dallas or they're in Cincinnati. I don't know why. Geography seems to play a part, I would bet.
We had one on the real estate company that I own where the guy really it was obvious that he accidentally showed one of our US based people, like his camera. He meant to have the camera off, but he had 7 monitors in the background with a bunch of different machines. We're like, okay, yeah, no wonder why you're struggling to do the job. You're trying to work 7 different jobs. It's really key. The tracking software, productivity software is key. The other downside, it's not so high. It's not so easy to fire people in these other countries. They don't exactly have the employment at will that we have in the United States or in Texas. Chris, they have a lot of holidays as well. So
they do.
Some of these other.
Wait, so do you have to it's not like the US where you're like, hey, company is downsizing or something like that. There's more formal procedures you have to follow.
Yeah. In most other countries, it's not quite like, hey, I just get to fire you at will. All the countries have different labor codes, and the employer of record, they're responsible for complying with those labor codes. But if you tell your EOR, you're like, hey, I don't like this guy, they make you jump through hoops because they have to document a termination with the employee according to the labor law of that country. And it's
interesting.
Not near as easy as it is in the United States. But the plus side is it's a great way to cut costs. I think the quality of labor that you get for administrative employees outside of the United States is superior to what we're getting in the US right now. I think that's a sad commentary in our society, but that's another kind of issue. And if you invest in the people and you pay them well, they become really loyal to your organization. So it's been good, but it's like anything, there's no easy money out there. Okay. Moving on to the next thing in the inbox. One of our attorneys, we're not mentioning names, sent a report on ours, said her performance was down because she's having to respond to a claim for ineffective assistance of counsel, IAC. I did not know what that was. Did you know what that was?
I don't know what it stands for, but I imagine that's just a thing that when you're a criminal, when you've been convicted of a crime and you need any reason to appeal your case, that's one of the things people are going to come up with. It's easy to throw your defense attorney under the bus.
And she's a great lawyer, and she was a criminal lawyer before coming to our firm. I'm sure she didn't do anything wrong, but if you're ever having a really bad day as a business, probate, or real estate lawyer, Chris, just it could be worse. I could be a criminal lawyer, and every one of my clients that went to jail, they have nothing better to do except sit in jail and then file ineffective claims of counsel, ineffective assistance of counsel claims against you years later. That's just what it's like being a criminal lawyer. That sounds like a terrible lifestyle, by the way. It arises out of the Sixth Amendment, which is a right to counsel. And there's this case, Strickland v. Washington, 1984 case, set the standard. And it said that, hey, back then, the lawyer's performance was deficient, so much so that it was below an objective standard of reasonableness. And it was so bad, basically, that he didn't really get counsel. That one case started this whole, for every time you lose, you file an ineffective counsel claim. So really bad deal for criminal lawyers.
Criminal defense attorneys are creative, to say the least. They come up with some creative strategies to assist their clients. So on some levels, it's admirable, and some levels it's okay. We've gone off the deep end now.
I've got a friend who does white collar crime, but he's in Houston. Mostly what he does is a bunch of doctors that commit Medicare fraud, and they all go to jail. Almost all of them. Sometimes he gets them all, most of the time, but he's getting them amazing deals. But a lot of times they get mad and they're educated, so they'll file this ineffective assistance of counsel claim. So it just really is a bad deal. That's what it was. All right. What was that? 4 or 5 things that were in my inbox. What do you think, Chris? Is your inbox more interesting than that or less?
My inbox is a lot of legal questions from everyone from top to bottom.
Well, we might do your inbox next Friday.
It might be.
Okay.
I didn't know the government was shut down. Apparently that's a thing.
Yeah, government shut down, but we're so over that because it's like the market's not even reacting to the shut. No one cares.
I wonder how often it happened. I don't remember it happening when we were kids, but I definitely, as an adult, over the last 10, 15 years, it's happened multiple times. Yeah. So I
think it was 7 years ago. Let's see. Last time government was shut down, it happened 35-day shutdown 2018, 2019 during Donald Trump's first presidency. So yeah, there you have it. Okay, that brings our show to a close. I've been your host, Phil Silberman. Chris Heald has been my co-host. Like us, follow us, review us wherever you get your podcast. And as a reminder, nothing in this show to be considered legal advice, and this has all been for entertainment purposes only. If you have a legal question, email us at info@silblawfirm.com. That's info@silblawfirm.com. And tell us you want it publicly answered in the podcast. Everybody have a great weekend.